All right, so Scott is a part owner of Tree Time Services and works as a silviculture specialist with Coast to Coast Reforestation. And I found this really interesting in that he's been responsible for coordinating reforestation of around 50 million seedlings in his career and sold around 700 million seedlings. So this guy knows a few things about little trees. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Scott.
Okay, thanks, Brad. I'm just working on a single screen here, so I'm going to share my screen, so I won't be able to get much feedback. So if you don't see my screen, make sure you vocalize it.
Okay, I'll stay on here until we get your screen running up and running then.
Okay. Let's just get this. Okay. Start her up. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, right on. Well, thanks everyone. So I'm going to talk today about current and emerging nursery technology. My presentation does have a number of videos in it because a lot of what I'm going to be talking about as far as emerging technologies is automation, so I sure hope it comes through okay. So again, Brad, please give me feedback if there's some problem with the videos. So this first picture is sort of state-of-the-art. I had the privilege, and I was fortunate to go to Sweden a few years ago and tour about 6 different reforestation nurseries in Sweden. And this was one of their harvesting and packing lines. So near the end of the presentation, I'm actually going to show a video of this operating. So before I get into sort of current and emerging technologies, I want to talk a little bit about some of the past nursery practices. I dug up this picture from Alberta Archives. I'm not sure where it was. It didn't say. I do not believe it's not the Smoky Lake Forest Nursery, but pre-1990, most of the tree seedlings that were produced were bare root or plug plus one type seedlings. You know, there are a lot of great bare root plantations out there, but bare root does have some downsides. High labor inputs, for one thing. It's produced outdoor, and when you're producing seedlings outdoor, you're at the mercy of the elements and poor weather events, Arctic outbreaks, freezing events, all sorts of things. So post-1990, container seedlings became the predominant stock type that were used in Alberta and BC for that matter as well. The advantages of the container growing system is that they're greenhouse produced, and of course in a greenhouse you can control the environment. And easier to plant for sure rather than that mop of bare roots. And because they're easier to plant, they probably don't go through as much planting shock as a bare root seedling would. So generally better survival in the field. You get some buffering capacity with that peat plug as far as protection for the roots and a little bit of moisture and nutrients held in there. So if you have some adverse dry conditions, the container seedlings seem to perform a little better. So an outline of some of the nursery technology I'm going to go through in this presentation, both current and then some of the emerging technologies, are seeding. We're going to look at some of the different seeding technologies out there. Fertigation, basically how water and nutrients are applied to the crops, some of the technologies we're currently using for that. Lights, there's been a change in technology moving away from some of the more conventional high pressure sodium lights like what you actually see here and towards some of the LEDs. I'll talk about that. Environmental control systems, key in modern day greenhouses. So we'll look at some of the control systems that are out there and how they control heating, cooling, and a number of different inputs. And then harvesting. I'm going to look at how we harvest seedlings and some of the new harvesting lines that are out there, particularly used in Europe and that we're starting to examine as well. So seeding, the very first thing. So There's a variety of automated seeding technologies that we're currently using in our group of nurseries. We use vacuum drum seeders, and that's what's actually pictured there. We also use needle seeders, and I'll show you some pictures of that in a short video, as well as precision seeders. So you can actually see in that picture the seed laying in the tray where the drum spins around. The first one I'll talk about are needle seeders. So the picture you see there is a brand new Mosin needle seeder from Italy that we just recently purchased. And the nice thing with needle seeders is it can be used on a variety of seed, right from small to large. They're highly accurate, but they're quite slow. But the nice thing is you can use them on really small seed, as small as aspen, where there's 10 million seeds per kilogram. So I'm going to play a short video here. Hopefully this works. Give me feedback if it doesn't, just to show you how a needle seeder works. What there are is small diameter needles using vacuum to suck up the seed. So you guys get the idea there. And Brad, if you can hear me, were you guys able to see that video? I hope so. Drum seeders. So drum seeders is another type of technology that we use in our greenhouse. This is probably the primary type of seeder we use. It can't be used on as many different varieties of seed. You can't use it on really small seed. Decent accuracy with a drum seeder. And one of the big pros of a drum seeder is really fast. You can run a lot of blocks through it very quickly. So very efficient seeder. And then we also use precision seeders. They can be used on a larger variety of seed. Can't use them on very, very small seed though. They're accurate and they're fairly fast. And this was actually a picture I took of a precision seeder, a BCC precision seeder in Sweden. And I'll actually share this video of a precision seeder working just so you get an idea. This is a 3-head precision seeder. You can actually see as the seed comes down that channel, and it gets dropped in the little tray there. Again, this was in Sweden. I took this particular video in Sweden. We actually use a precision seeder at our Bonneville Forest Nursery. So that's it on seeders. Now I just want to talk a little bit about fertigation as far as current nursery technology. So fertigation is how we apply nutrients to the seedlings out in the greenhouse. So it's important that we get all our macros and micronutrients, and we get the appropriate level of nutrients at the appropriate time on the seedlings. We use a number of different injector systems in our greenhouses right now. The system on the left, the Argus injector, is used at our Bonneville Forest Nursery. You can see the large mixed tanks sort of in the foreground where the different nutrients are mixed. The injector system on the right is actually from our Chinook greenhouse down in Medicine Hat. That's a 4-head Anderson injection system. And again, what happens is the nutrients are mixed in a big tank, the fertilizer, and then it's sucked out of the tank and injected into the irrigation water stream as the seedlings are being irrigated. So the way the fertilizer is put on the seedlings and the water for irrigation at most of our facilities is through booms, and this is our Chinook greenhouse. You can see 3 booms running right now spraying on the crop. The advantage of booms is that you get very even distribution of the fertilization and the irrigation on the crop. Easy to control as far as hitting different areas of the crop. I'm going to show you a state-of-the-art boom at our Bonnyville Forest Nursery. I'm going to play this video for you. So this is a boom that Bonnyville runs, and it's actually a programmable boom. You can set it for different zones, so it can apply different rates of water at different zones. So if you have numerous zones across the crop. You can see how nicely distributed the irrigation water is. That's the control system for Bonnyville's programmable boom, where you can set up different zones. Now I'm going to switch gears, talk about lights just briefly. So there's been a big shift away from the old high-pressure sodium lights that I mentioned. You know, they worked well, but they used a lot of energy. LED lights are getting better and better. So a lot of our nurseries are switching over to LED lights. We use the LED lights strictly for photoperiod extension, which basically means that keeps the conifer seedlings we're growing from prematurely setting bud and stopping height growth. They're not used as grow lights, like a cannabis operation, for example, would use high intensity and a lot more LED lights to actually grow the crop. But we're just using them to keep the photoperiod extended so the buds don't set. This is an LED light that's going to be installed at our Red Rock Forest Nursery. At nighttime, so you extend the photoperiod out. Usually we want a 20-hour photoperiod to make sure that the seedlings don't set up during the growth period. You can see the red glow from the LED lights at night. I believe that's our Chinook Nursery. Environmental controls. So the brains of all these systems, what controls the heating, the cooling, humidity levels in the greenhouse, CO2 in some cases, what turns the lights on and off at the proper time, can control blackout curtains where we have to black out crops to get the buds to set, so we get cessation of height growth, so we don't grow the trees outside their height parameters, or energy curtains can all be controlled by environmental controls. And this is a Priva system. That's one type of environmental control. I actually took this picture, I believe, at the old Pineland Nursery in Manitoba. We use Priva controls in a lot of our nurseries. We also use the Argus controls. And we also use the iGrow controls. So we use different control systems. The nice thing with these control systems is you can log into them remotely, even from your smartphone now, and you can see what the conditions are like in the greenhouses. You can manually turn lights on and off, furnaces on and off, ventilation fans, exhaust fans, louvers on and off. Picture on the left just shows all the various switches that go on and off that these controls can control. Everything from furnaces to fans, you name it. Harvesting lines now. This is another area that is automated, but we're nearly not as automated as Sweden. So we use automated harvesting lines in most of our operations. Pin extractors are our primary mechanism we use to extract the trees, where pins actually push plugs out from the bottom of the block. This picture's at our Bonnyville Forest Nursery again. I believe that's actually Richard Schmago standing with Dan McCurdy at the end there. Most of our nurseries can pack utilizing pin extractors, and then depending on how many lines they run, anywhere from 250,000 to 350,000 seedlings a day can be harvested. And I'm going to play this short video to show you guys how pin extractors work. This one came from KNC Nursery. You can see how the pins push the seedlings out of the styro blocks. The seedlings have to have a fairly good root system in order for the pin extractors to work. If the roots are soft at all, the plugs will usually get destroyed during the extraction process. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about what I saw when I was in Sweden and some of the automated harvesting lines we're looking at. This is an automated harvesting line in Sweden that actually lifts the seedlings both out of the blocks that they have with sort of pneumatic fingers that inflate, as well as pushes from the bottom. And then it puts them into these carriages, these sort of shoebox type carriages prior to packing them. So I'll play this for you just so you can get an idea of some of the automation. You can see those fingers use air to actually grab the trees. This system can't grade on root collar diameter, but it can grade on height by setting where those fingers grab the trees as they're pulled up. A line like this, when I was in Sweden, had basically two people running it, sort of an equipment operator and a forklift operator, whereas a conventional line like this to harvest a comparable amount of seedlings for us could be easily like 25 to 35 people. So massive labor savings, but high capital cost. Next area of sort of nursery advancement and areas that we're looking at are mini plug transplants. So both these pictures were taken in Sweden again. In the right-hand picture is a mini plug in my hand. And in the left-hand picture here is a giant greenhouse in Sweden filled with mini plug trays. Now the advantage of going to a mini plug and then transplanting it into a bigger cavity is most of your high energy inputs when you're sowing in January, February are heat. And if you can heat fewer greenhouses and produce these mini plugs and then transplant them once you get through those critical months there where a lot of heat is required and transplant them into bigger cavities, you can save a lot of energy. You can also minimize your thinning costs and your transplanting costs by going to an automated system. I'll show you some automated transplanting systems. This video is one I took when I was in Sweden as well, of a BCC automated transplanting line where they basically pull the mini plugs out of the small trays and transplant them into bigger trays. I'll show you another make, TTA. This is a company out of Holland. They're transplanting heather in this particular video, if it'll work. Let's see. Shows you how quickly and how efficient transplanting from the smaller mini plugs into the larger cavities can be. A lot of this automation technology is coming out of Europe, out of Holland, out of Sweden. Stop it there. If I can get off to my next slide here. Oh, don't want to show that again. try to stop it here. Might have to go back to the presentation and force it. And I also wanted to show just perhaps in the future with forest crops, there might be an opportunity to go to future indoor vertical seedling growing systems. Right now, this isn't really used for forestry crops. It's mostly used for real short rotation, herbs and lettuce food crops. But you can see how much more efficient space is used. The only issue is lots of electricity needed for systems like this, just for the lights. These are sort of indoor growing systems, but highly controlled areas. So you can control the amount of light, you can control the amount of nutrients, and minimize your footprint. And the last thing I'm going to do is just share a video from BCC that shows the whole harvest line working that I showed right at the beginning of the presentation. So hopefully this will work for you guys, and then that'll be it, so you can get an appreciation. There's that gripper and deplugging unit that I showed you earlier. You can see where it leaves sort of cull trees in the block that are either too short. Again, this system doesn't grade on root collar diameter, and it doesn't wrap the seedlings. The seedlings are simply packed into a box without wrap. This particular system has a detecting unit that takes a picture of the block and figures out how many trees it has to add to try to get the correct number of trees in the box. That's what this unit does. It grabs the extra trees that are needed. Really shoves them all together into that carriage, and then pushes them into a box and builds a box right around the trees. Again, you can see how fast this whole system works. 2 people to run this line, as opposed to, like I say, 25 or 35 people. And that's it. The end of the presentation. I'll stop sharing.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott.
Did that work okay, Brad? I got no feedback. Could you guys see those videos?
Yes. Yeah. Occasionally they came through a little bit choppy, but for the most part, we were able to see them very well.
Okay, good.
That was good. Yeah. Excellent. So one question I had for you about this, you showed all this potential technology here. How much of this is actually going on in Alberta now, and how much are you expecting to see this growing in the future?
So not a lot of it is going on right now in North America. Like I say, most of these systems are European systems right now. There have been some people have dabbled in it, different components of it, but I do see it coming. The biggest thing is the labor savings, right? As cost of labor gets more expensive and availability of labor starts getting more difficult, these automated systems are going to start becoming more and more prevalent. They're coming down in price too. Initially, they were quite high capital investments, But as price of labor goes up, availability of labor goes down, and the price of these systems go down, we're going to see them start to be implemented more and more. And we're examining them in a number of our nurseries right now.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much, Scott.